Hello everyone, this is Amanda with Little Red Hen Baking Supply and I'm back with another video. I'm sorry it's been a while. We've been working hard on lots of new designs, but I knew that it was time to do another tutorial. Now, as some of y'all know, our stamps and cutter sets are designed to be used with both fondant and buttercream, as in rolled buttercream. So today I'm going to show you both methods, and this is for our cereal bowl. I like Lucky Charms design. When I was a little kid, we never got to have sugar cereals, and I used to feel like so deprived, but now I see my parents just were trying to keep us healthy. Anyway, but I loved Lucky Charms. So that was like when I was an adult and started buying my own food, like I was always buying Lucky Charms and Captain Crunch. Anyway. All right, so today we're going to do this Lucky Charms, and also, we got St. Patrick's Day coming up. I don't know, associate the two. Anyway, so all of our designs come in these book boxes, and it's really easy to organize and find them. I have a shelf full of these, and that's because many, many years ago, I was a semi-pro home baker, and I had the hardest time keeping up with all my cookie cutters and ended up buying multiples of many different designs. And I had like 6 of the same butterfly because I just couldn't find them when it was time to do a job. Anyway, so we have these book boxes. All right, so in here you'll see we've got the stamp and the cutters, and we've also got like a little word stamp in here. We'll get to that later. This is called a detail cutter, and we've got sprinkle cutters. And for a limited time, with orders of $50 or more, either on the littleredhenbakingsupply.com or lowcountryeclectic.com, if you place an order of $50 or more, you're going to get a free welcome package. This kind of just comes with like the tools and basic information that you need in order to get started on all this. We're trying to make it as easy and affordable as possible. So lastly, the last thing I'm going to mention is for the buttercream, because at one point we want to kind of like stiffen, like freeze the buttercream just to make it easier to handle. I like to use these ice cream roll trays. If you go to Amazon and just search ice cream roll tray, you'll see a tray. I know it's really hard to see because it's all zoomed in. Anyway, and these things are cheap. I mean, especially this time of year, they're rolling them out for spring and summer. These things are like either $10 to $15 each. So, and I keep one in the freezer at all time. So when I'm doing a big job, I can just kind of switch them out if I need to. If you don't have that, that's totally fine. You can always just stick it in the freezer, or have a little quarter sheet tray with a nice bag under it. There's lots of different ways to make that work. That's not a big issue. I just find these very convenient. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we are going to start with the fondant. So I'm going to first grab just a little bit of white fondant. And the reason is I'm going to paint the spoon silver when we're done with this cookie, and it's going to pop best on this white fondant. Okay. And I just realized I don't have my gloves on. I usually use gloves. I just was getting ahead of myself here. And I do recommend using gloves. I know some people don't like to wear them. Everybody's different. Some people do, but especially with fondant, I really like gloves because the fondant, good fondant, is sticky. It's going to be a little sticky, so it's going to stick to your fingers, and it just feels, it just feels nicer if you have gloves on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just roll that out, and I don't want to roll it real thin. I want it to be a little on the thick side. You can see that? Okay, this is where our detail cutter comes in. So I'm going to cut out this spoon shape. Okay, see, I've got that like perfect little spoon shape. And I'm going to use my cornstarch bag. It comes with your welcome kit. Just dust the stamp and tap it off. All right, there we go. Okay, now this little spoon that I just cut out, I'm going to put it right here. It just makes it really easy and quick to two-tone. I don't know, some stamps, it's like it takes forever to get these little bits of fondant into the little compartments, and just, like I said, it takes forever. So this is the acrylic scraper, and I'm just going to use this and scrape that fondant aside. All right, there we go. And all right, that's it. And one thing that makes our stamps different, not only are they designed to be used with buttercream as well as fondant, we also build in these retaining walls, so it makes it really easy to make sure the fondant stays where it needs to be. All right, so I'm going to set that aside and get I decided to do a green bowl since, it's Lucky Charms and it's, it's green. It's Irish, it's St. Patrick's Day. One of my kids was named after St. Patrick's Day. So in our house, St. Patrick's Day is like almost like a holiday around here. So anyway, okay. So here we go. I've got this. Again, I'm just going to roll this out. And you can just take this fondant and mash it down into the stamp. Our sets come with cookie cutters and buttercream cutters. And buttercream cutters are the exact size of the stamp, the interior of the stamp. So what I like to do, because I just think it's a lot faster, is just roll out the fondant, and then I'm going to take my buttercream cutter and cut that shape out. And you can't really see it because it's off camera, but I have this cake dome, and I'm just keeping my fondant under the cake dome because it keeps it really easy to access, but without drawing it out. Okay, and then I'm going to use my detail cutter to get that spoon bit I don't need in there out. Okay. Okay. All right, and then here I rolled it too thick, so that's fine. That happens. That's why we're still going to have to do the scraping process. Okay. So from here, I'm just going to kind of mash out the excess because I really rolled it out way too thick. So it's easier before you start the scraping with the acrylic scraper to just, that's good fondant. That's good fresh fondant right there. You see how it's like kind of stringy? That's what you want. That's nice and fresh fondant. All right. And then from here, I'm just going to kind of writing these offsets, these little outsets right here. Kind of go, I know it's hard to see. I'm trying to move my hand so you can see. Side to side and scrape that fondant off so that the fondant is nice and flush with the edge there, right? Okay, and then we're going to do this side, same thing. Okay, and I'm going to be careful right here. See how it wants to come out here? That's not a problem. Just, you know, as it goes, I'm just holding it. Do you see how you just kind of hold the fondant in there? And same thing. You're just kind of shimmying it side to side. Boom. Now, sometimes, it didn't really happen with this one, but sometimes you scrape out too much fondant and maybe it's like not as deep in the stamp as you want it to be. That is not a problem. What you do is you just take a little bit of fondant and just add it back in and go through the scrape process. So if you ever see a part where it was like a little light, again, not a problem. You don't have to start over. Just put some down and scrape it again. Okay, that's good. All right, so now in order to get that fondant out of the stamp, we've got to have some other fondant to grab it because fondant sticks to fondant. So I'm gonna clean this up real quick. All right, and one thing I like to do is use a tiny little silicone sheet, and this is just a, you know, an inexpensive little silicone baking sheet, and I just cut it up into 6. So I've got a bunch of these just like tiny sheets. See how small that is? It's like 4 by 6 or something. All right. And I'll show you why in just a second. Okay. So I'm going to get my roller and roll that out. And I kind of want to roll it out to the general shape of the stamp. I don't want it to be too thick. And the reason is because I don't want to have like a super thick layer of fondant on top of my cookie. Okay. I mean, unless you just want that, unless you just really want a thick layer. Okay, so don't ever put cornstarch here because you want it to be sticky so that it sticks to here. Now, if it ever feels like the fondant in your stamp is not sticky enough, you can just put a little bit of water. And I always keep a little jar of either water or water cornstarch blend. And what you can do if it just feels like you're a little worried that the fondant in your stamp is not going to stick, just put a little water on there. It's not that big of a deal. It'll come out. All right, and so we're going to smash it down on here on a base fondant and just give it good pressure, equal pressure all over. Okay, here we go. All right, and now you're going to see why I like to use this little piece of fondant because it just makes it so easy. You can just use your fondant lifter that comes in your kit to lift it up, but I really like this little silicone sheet. I can also see the back, make sure it's got good contact. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start peeling. And voila, there we go. We've got our cereal bowl right here. Okay, this is where we're going to take the cookie cutter and we're just going to line it up so that we've got like a nice kind of equal offset all around the design. Okay, and if you kind of shake it while it's in the cutter, it trims the edges up. Here we go. I'll put this away. Okay. Now, for fondant cookies, I always want to use a cookie that was cut out using my cookie cutter, okay? And like I said, wow, I just spilled cornstarch or cornstarch everywhere. That's fantastic. Anyway, so like I said, I'm just going to paint a little bit of corn syrup water mix onto the cookie here. This just kind of helps it adhere. Everybody has something different. Some people like to use like some really runny royal icing. Some people like to use actual food glue that has tragacanth in it, but I think cornstarch and water works great. Okay, so I'm going to peel it off my little silicone piece. All right, and just line it up. Okay, and you can kind of trim the edges up and just kind of like make sure it looks good. Yep, that's what we want. Okay, so the next step is going to be, I've got some white royal icing here, and I've already got it in flow state. So it's already been watered down so that it's nice and liquidy. You see that? Now we don't want to use too much, but we do want it to look like milk in the bowl. So I'm just going to kind of gently, I want to say coerce, but I'm not sure that's the right word. I want to gently guide the royal icing to the edges of this indentation where the bowl is. And we're going to set that aside. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and put your Lucky Charms sprinkles on, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. I prefer to wait, and the reason until the royal icing's dried a bit, and I'll tell you why. Because if you put the sprinkles on right now, the sprinkles, which are made out of fondant, are going to want to soak up water from the royal icing, and then the sprinkles kind of lose their firmness. So I prefer to let this harden, and then we'll affix the sprinkles later. Okay, so I'm going to set this one aside, and we're going to go through the buttercream process now. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so when I'm doing the buttercream cookies, I like to use a cookie that has been cut out with the cookie cutter, the buttercream cutter. And the reason is because then the buttercream just fits on top of here nice and flush, and you don't have this excess cookie bit. It just looks neater and cleaner. The only time I don't do that is when I'm working with a design that has like a long skinny bit. Like I did one that had a cat and had a long tail. And if I had tried to just make this long like little bit of cookie, it would have broken off. So I needed to have a general shape. But for this one, it works great. Just making the cookie from a buttercream cutter. I hear, yeah, somebody's waking up over there. All right, so let's see here. All right, so when we're, all right, I'm gonna have to cut this in half and go take the doggies out.